The long-term consequences of prison fights can be devastating, both for the individuals involved and for the prison system as a whole. Inmates who are seriously injured may require extensive medical treatment, placing a strain on already limited resources. Those who are killed in fights leave behind grieving families and a legacy of violence that perpetuates the cycle of retribution. In one case, an inmate who was killed in a fight over a gambling debt became a martyr for his gang, inspiring further violence and unrest within the prison. 16. The role of mental illness in prison fights is often overlooked, but it plays a significant role in many violent incidents. Inmates with untreated mental health issues may be more prone to aggression or paranoia, leading to conflicts with others. In one case, an inmate with schizophrenia attacked another inmate after becoming convinced that the man was plotting against him. The fight was chaotic and unpredictable, with the mentally ill inmate lashing out wildly before being subdued by guards. The incident highlighted the need for better mental health care in prisons, but resources remain scarce. 17. The use of technology in prison fights is a relatively new phenomenon, with some inmates using smuggled cell phones to coordinate attacks or record fights for later distribution. In one case, a fight was recorded and uploaded to social media, where it quickly went viral. The video showed two inmates engaging in a brutal brawl, with one man repeatedly stomping on the other's head. The footage sparked outrage and calls for reform, but within the prison, it only served to glorify the violence and reinforce the culture of brutality. 18. The role of women in prison fights is often overlooked, but female inmates are just as capable of violence as their male counterparts. In one case, a fight between two female inmates over a romantic relationship turned deadly, with one woman using a makeshift knife to stab the other multiple times. The fight was fueled by jealousy and betrayal, and it left one woman dead and the other facing a life sentence. The incident shed light on the unique challenges faced by women in prison, including the emotional toll of isolation and the pressure to form alliances. 19. The use of fire in prison fights is rare but not unheard of, with some inmates using homemade incendiary devices to attack their enemies. In one case, an inmate set fire to another inmate's cell while he was sleeping, causing severe burns and smoke inhalation. The attack was motivated by a personal grudge, and it left the victim with permanent scars and respiratory issues. The perpetrator was placed in solitary confinement, but the incident raised concerns about the availability of materials that could be used to create such devices. 20. The role of religion in prison fights is complex, with some inmates using their faith as a source of strength and others using it to justify violence. In one case, a fight broke out between two inmates of different religious backgrounds, each claiming that their faith gave them the right to dominate the other. The fight was fueled by deep-seated prejudices and a desire to prove superiority, and it left both men seriously injured. The incident highlighted the need for greater religious tolerance and understanding within the prison system. 21. The use of animals in prison fights is a disturbing trend that has been reported in some facilities, with inmates using rats, birds, or even insects to attack their enemies. In one case, an inmate trained a rat to bite another inmate by starving the animal and then releasing it into the man's cell. The attack was both cruel and unusual, and it left the victim with a serious infection. The perpetrator was punished, but the incident raised questions about the lengths to which inmates will go to inflict harm on one another. 22. The role of age in prison fights is another important factor, with younger inmates often being more prone to violence and older inmates relying on experience and cunning. In one case, a young inmate challenged an older, more experienced prisoner to a fight, believing that his youth and strength would give him the upper hand. The older inmate, however, used his knowledge of prison politics and psychological tactics to outmaneuver his opponent, leaving the younger man humiliated and defeated. The fight served as a reminder that in prison, wisdom can often trump brute force. 23. The use of food as a weapon in prison fights is a common tactic, with inmates using trays, utensils, or even boiling water to attack their enemies. In one case, an inmate threw a pot of scalding water at another inmate during a fight in the kitchen, causing severe burns. The attack was motivated by a personal grudge, and it left the victim with permanent scars. The perpetrator was placed in solitary confinement, but the incident highlighted the dangers of working in prison kitchens and the potential for violence in even the most mundane settings. 24. The role of music in prison fights is an often overlooked aspect of prison culture, with some inmates using songs or chants to intimidate their opponents or rally their allies. In one case, a fight broke out in the yard after one inmate began taunting another with a derogatory song. The fight was fueled by the power of words and the desire to defend one's honor, and it left both men bloodied and bruised. The incident served as a reminder that in prison, even the smallest provocation can lead to violence. 25. The use of clothing in prison fights is another common tactic, with inmates using belts, shoelaces, or even their own shirts to strangle or restrain their opponents. In one case, an inmate used a shoelace to choke another inmate during a fight in the cell block, leaving the man unconscious. The attack was motivated by a desire to assert dominance, and it left the victim with lasting physical and emotional scars. The perpetrator was punished, but the incident raised concerns about the availability of materials that could be used as weapons. 26. The role of sports in prison fights is complex, with some inmates using athletic competitions as a way to release tension and others using them as an opportunity to settle scores. In one case, a fight broke out during a basketball game after one inmate accused another of cheating. The fight quickly escalated, with both men using their fists and whatever else they could find as weapons. The incident served as a reminder that even in a controlled environment, the potential for violence is always present. 27. The use of time as a weapon in prison fights is a subtle but effective tactic, with some inmates using prolonged isolation or sleep deprivation to weaken their opponents. In one case, an inmate was kept awake for days by his cellmate, who would bang on the walls and shout at all hours. The sleep-deprived inmate eventually snapped, attacking his tormentor in a fit of rage. The fight was short but brutal, leaving both men injured and the cell in disarray. The incident highlighted the psychological toll of living in close quarters with a hostile cellmate. 28. The role of family in prison fights is often overlooked, but the desire to protect or avenge loved ones can be a powerful motivator. In one case, an inmate attacked another inmate after learning that the man had threatened his family on the outside. The fight was fueled by a deep sense of loyalty and protectiveness, and it left both men seriously injured. The incident served as a reminder that even in prison, the bonds of family can drive individuals to extreme acts of violence. 29. The use of technology in prison fights is a growing concern, with some inmates using smuggled devices to coordinate attacks or spread propaganda. In one case, an inmate used a smuggled cell phone to record a fight and send the footage to a rival gang on the outside. The video was used to incite further violence, both inside and outside the prison, and it left authorities struggling to contain the fallout. The incident highlighted the challenges of controlling technology in an increasingly connected world. 30. The role of addiction in prison fights is another important factor, with some inmates using drugs or alcohol to numb their pain or fuel their aggression. In one case, an inmate high on methamphetamine attacked another inmate in a fit of paranoia, believing that the man was plotting against him. The fight was chaotic and unpredictable, with the high inmate lashing out wildly before being subdued by guards. The incident highlighted the need for better addiction treatment in prisons, but resources remain scarce. 31. The use of language in prison fights is a powerful tool, with some inmates using insults, threats, or coded language to provoke their opponents or rally their allies. In one case, a fight broke out after one inmate used a racial slur against another. The fight was fueled by deep-seated prejudices and a desire to defend one's honor, and it left both men seriously injured. The incident served as a reminder that in prison,